Welcome to Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt of the Marquardt Law Firm at marquardtlawfirm.com.
Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt. On the radio, on podcasts everywhere, on Facebook Live, and on YouTube. Remember that the YouTube segments are cut into bite-sized parts so that you can listen to different topics while you're doing the dishes, while you're walking the dog, and while you're doing your homework if you want to. This is our fourth segment, and that's the legacy segment.
And now it's time for the Talk Law Radio Legacy Spotlight. What's your legacy? Sponsored by Marquardt Law Firm.
So Pete Sepp, president of the National Taxpayers Union, is here with me talking about the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. And you've been telling us a lot about the National Taxpayers Union and its mission throughout the show. I wondered about you personally. I haven't asked you a lot of personal questions. So I'd like to know, what do you think of legacy? How would you define it in your own life? And what do you hope to see? How do you hope people will remember you?
Well, I don't define legacy as a material thing. There could be any of a number of pieces of property from my dad's watch on down that I would consider a legacy, but that really pales in comparison to the two policy-based legacies that I've wanted to leave behind in my career. The first has to do with giving the American taxpayer rights and respect from their government. My second day on the job, I answered a phone call from a fellow, and again, this was 1988, who had reached the end of his rope. He found, unfortunately, the legal blind spot with problems with the IRS. And he told me he could no longer go on living because the government had handed him to that point. I don't know what happened to that fellow. I do know of others who have taken their own lives over IRS problems. I don't ever want that to happen to anyone. And there are laws, protections, and litigation that we can do to try and keep taxpayers from being abused by their own government. And that's an important thing to leave behind. We have successfully enacted 5 separate taxpayer rights laws. We're working on a 6th one because the job is never done. You always have to keep reforming the system so that people are protected. And I guess my second legacy has to do with debt. I mean, as the Bible says, the borrower is servant to the lender. Right. And I've seen that so many times in my career since 1988, both political parties saying, we'll get around to the debt problem next year. And next year never comes. Well, the day of reckoning is coming for us. I mean, you look at the bond auctions for federal government debt that occurred last week. There were very few takers in the investment community because there is an increasing lack of confidence in this government's finances. I'm not here to preach doomsday, but it is a cause for concern. It's irresponsible borrowing.
What are some of the things that you have done or that you plan to do to make that mark so that people remember you for doing that?
Well, when it comes to debt, we absolutely need some kind of permanent, lasting constitutional protection that says if the government wants to borrow, you need an extraordinary majority in Congress, 3/5, 2/3 to do it. And in good years, we should not be thinking about adding to the debt. In bad years, we should be very careful about doing it. And I'm convinced that in the end, that's what's going to be the solution, a constitutional approach, something like what the Swiss government has and what's called their debt brake. And we've come close to getting that passed in the 1990s, but it's been an uphill climb.
Do you have information or resources on the National Taxpayers Union website so that people can
Yes.
learn more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Our website is NTU, our initials for National Taxpayers Union, NTU.org.
Okay, great. Well, that's all I want to say about legacy. I want to go back to something that's been in the news, criticism by Elon Musk about the one big beautiful bill. Is he out of line there? Is there anything that you think he's right about?
Well, I'm not sure that his characterization of the bill as an abomination that should be killed is accurate. I certainly think that the taxpayer relief provisions preventing a 3.5, even $4 trillion tax increase from strangling the economy, that's an important plus in
Hmm.
the one big beautiful bill. We can't ignore that. I think that some of the slowdowns in federal spending and the reforms to Medicaid are a good start. I wouldn't dismiss his concerns entirely, though. The fact is that even if the One Beautiful Bill passes as is, the federal debt will rise by roughly $4 trillion over the next 2 years or so. And our debt is already at 36 trillion. Um, Thinking that it would be past 40 under a Republican Congress and president gives us pause to think, well, if you're going to walk the walk on fiscal conservatism here, you're going to have to do a better job in controlling spending. You may not do it in the one big beautiful bill. You may have to do it in things like that rescission package that
I
you may
was
have.
just going to ask that. Thank you for bringing that up because that's probably another term that people who don't follow politics know about, and they're hearing about it in the media. Uh, Now's your opportunity to explain in layman's terms what that means and why it's important.
Well, a rescission is an act of rescinding or clawing back funding that's been appropriated through the appropriations process. And this is a separate tool from reconciliation because all reconciliation does is set overall targets for spending and some policies. What it can't do is go backward and start taking back funding that's already been
Okay.
appropriated. A rescissions package can do that. The president identifies budget savings to either zero out entire federal programs or cut them by 5% or 10% or whatever the case may be. And then they put that in a message to Congress saying the president believes in rescinding, clawing back the following funds. Congress, once it receives that presidential message, has 45 days to either approve of the reductions or just let them go away, in which case the funding stays intact and nothing happens. The recent rescissions package, with about $9.3 billion in savings, is the first one from this Trump administration, mostly affecting foreign aid and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
So the House will probably agree with something like that because it's easy to get a majority, or it's easier, I would imagine, to get a majority. What are the rules with the Senate? Does it require 60 senators, or is it like reconciliation that just requires a majority?
No, they can do 51 votes there. And it will be a close vote in the House. Believe it or not, there are certain Republicans. One from Nebraska was already saying today, well, I don't know if I can vote to rescind money for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Go figure. I mean, that's taxpayer funded broadcasting. I mean, you pay your own way.
Right. Yeah.
Why should taxpayers fund this?
And those were started back in the old days when it was hard to get on TV. Now, yahoos like me can get on YouTube and the radio and podcasts very easily.
Yeah, me too.
So we only have a couple of minutes left. So I wanted to give you those 2 minutes to sort of recap everything that you're thinking about the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. How can we get those tax cuts extended and have the essential functions of government at the same time?
We can do both, but it is going to take more work. The One Big Beautiful Bill should be viewed as the beginning of this process. With One Big Beautiful Bill, we can prevent a huge tax increase. We can start to chip away at the wasteful spending that's been going on in government for decades and has only increased since the COVID epidemic. We need much, much more action, however. Chip Roy and others in the House of Representatives are insisting that we move forward with more rescissions like the one the president just proposed. They're going to do more in the appropriations process to restrain spending, but we've got to tackle entitlements. They are the crisis right on our doorstep. They are no longer decades away. They're a few years away. That's our next big task.
Okay, I was just thinking the media is always saying that you're not supposed to talk about cutting entitlements.
Well, whether we reform them, slow their growth, whatever the case may be, we do have to face them. They are what are going to devour the federal budget and future taxpayers' finances.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I hope to see you again soon.
Me also. Take care.
You too.
This has been Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt, brought to you by the Marquardt Law Firm. You can learn more at marquardtlawfirm.com. And be sure to listen to the full Talk Law Radio show Saturday mornings at 11 on 9:30 a.m. The Answer.
Each week, attorney Todd Marquardt talks about the law. His mission with the Talk Law Radio show and podcast is to help you discover your legal issue blind spots. In the beginning, God had one law. Don't eat from the fruit of that tree. Then came the 10 Commandments. Now we have federal, state, and municipal lawmakers that won't stop creating new laws. Laws that might impact you without you knowing it. Listen to the show and drop a line on Facebook or email host@talklawradio.com and let the host know what you think of the show, the topics you want to hear, and whether you want to be a guest.